Hello and welcome back to the Reapers. Today we're going to be in the mission editor in DCS world, and we're going to be looking at issuing waypoints or routes in the form of waypoints and waypoint data to aircraft groups or plane groups and helicopter groups, and then look at issuing actions, waypoint actions. So we're going to go through most of that. So let's just get going. I've got nothing planned, so we'll just make it up on the fly as usual. It's just it's always the most fun way. Okay, here we go. So we're going to choose a target, zoom in, find some kind of ground-based target. So how about we bomb? Nice set of buildings there that need bombing, I think. So we've already done a video showing how to create plane and helicopter groups for AI usage or for human usage. So we're not really going through that. It's more giving them the orders, but we'll have to go through a bit of creation because we've obviously got to create them. So the first thing first, let's create a plane group, a hostile Red Coalition plane group to come and bomb these guys, shall we? So let's start them kind of out here, 15 miles out here. So plane group, click them out here. We're going to call them Red Bomber Group. We're going to make them a coalition of USAF. They're going to be 100% condition. Their task is going to be, it's not CAS really, is it? It's kind of ground attack. They're going to be, what shall we have ground attacking today? Do we tink? Some Harriers? Some F-14s. Everyone likes F-14s. I don't know if the AI programming is finished for the F-14 yet, but I guess we'll give it a go. I want them AI controlled. I'm going to make them excellent skill. I'm not going to, this is where I could change the individual pilot names for each unit, and we're not going to change that yet. We're going to have 4 of them, but remember, don't change the quantity until we've done their full set out, then change the quantity. Okay? Tail number, com, radio freak, call sign, all of that we're going to leave as default. Hidden on the map, no. Do we want late activation? No. Well, they can start as soon as the map begins. Late activation will be based on the logic trigger system, and we've got a video on that already. So let's start with their grouping. So they're currently at waypoint 0, their default waypoint, and they're starting at 6,000 feet, 400 knots. Let's just knock that down a little bit. 3,000 feet, speed 330 knots, and regards the altitude, we can have AGL or ASL or MSL. Okay, and next we're going to add a second waypoint, which will be their IP waypoint. Give them ingress. It'll be a visual, something visual they could see. So it'd be probably this funny little bend in the river, I imagine. Something they could spot quite easily. Okay, so that's their IP, and their IP at this point they want to be getting low for the attack, and we're going to put them as low as we can. Now we only have a certain amount of control at how low we can make these things fly, and this is generally the same for all AI controlled aircraft, so I could put 50 feet in there if I want. They're not going to fly at 50 feet. They'll be hard coded to have a limit that they'll dare fly at, probably 500 to 1,000 feet with most planes. So we're going to put it to 500 feet. Hopefully we'll be able to force them down to that level. We'll just have to see. And they're also going to speed up at waypoint 1 up to 450 knots. The burners are going to come on. Okay, now they've reached their IP point. They need an action to happen. So what we're going to do, in fact, I should say before I go any further, if we look at the route, we can cycle between waypoints here. So back to default waypoint 0, and we can cycle to their second waypoint if you like, waypoint 1. And you can see it gives us here the ETA, the global time that they're going to reach that waypoint. So if the game starts at 8 o'clock, and I've started the game at 8 o'clock in the morning, then they will reach waypoint at 54 seconds past 8. Okay, based on the speed that I've given them. We can actually change it around. We can ask them to arrive at waypoint 1 at a certain time to fit your role play for the mission. What we would do then is turn this guy off, fixed time. We could ask them to arrive at 8:1:54, and then it would calculate the speed 216 knots to arrive at waypoint 1 at that time. Okay, but I don't want to do that, so I'm going to put it all back. What was it, 450 knots? Okay, right, so it's going to follow, each one of those waypoints can have waypoint actions assigned to them, and they are relevant to that waypoint. So waypoint 0 has no actions assigned to it, waypoint 1 has no actions assigned to it, but we'll want to assign an action to it. So we're going to click on add here. So to get this menu up, we've clicked on this. This comes up, and we can now add an action, add. We've got these 4 menus: perform task, start en route task, perform command, and set option. Okay, and if we have a quick look through these menus here, under perform task we can, and these will depend on the type of aircraft that we've got selected. So these are specific to the F-14B, whatever we've got here. I can attack a map object, I can do bombing, I can orbit, I can refuel, I can follow another group, I can do some aerobatics, quite cool, or do some World War II stuff. Under start en route task, I could do nothing. Under perform command, I could no action, I could run an external script, more script, I could set the radio freak, set a radio freak for one of the units within this group, I could transmit a radio message, stop transmitting a radio message, I could switch to another waypoint, so I could jump to waypoint 13 or whatever. I could make this invisible. Invisible does not mean literally invisible, it means hostile AI cannot detect this guy. That's what that means. We can make it immortal with smoke on or off. It's a new one. And again, these are all bespoke to the F-14. And we could set options. We could set rules of engagement, how it reacts if it sees a threat of some kind, how it's going to use its radar, how it's going to use its countermeasures, how it's going to fly in formation, when it's going to RTB, and bingo, when it's going to RTB and out of ammo, all the rules, the RTB, if we want to silence its radar, and its use of jamming. Okay, so perform task, we're going to do bombing. So it's going to reach waypoint 1, then it's going to do bombing, and you see the bombing command there. So first of all, we've got to move our bombing vector to whatever we want to bomb. It was this thing, wasn't it? Because they dropped them bombs there. And let's have a look at our options. So we can have a name for this bombing if we wanted. I don't know why we would, but we could. We could only do that. We could do this conditionally. Currently, we do this action related to waypoint 1 unconditionally, so they'll do it every time. We could make it conditional. We could click here, and we could say only do this bombing command if a time is above a certain amount of time, if a user flag is a certain integer, or is on or is off, and that is commanded through the logic trigger system that we've looked at in another video, based on a probability or based on some sort of external scripting that I don't understand. We're going to make it unconditional today. What weapon do we want to use? Well, we haven't actually armed this aircraft up yet, but we're going to say I want him to use his bombs. How much ordnance do we want to use for this? I want to use all of your ordnance. Attack quantity. So I think that means if it comes in, drops a bomb, comes round again, drops a bomb, comes round again, drops a bomb, how many of those runs it wants to make, I believe. Do we want to make this a group attack, i.e. everyone in the group to drop their bombs? I do, and we'll add some more into the group later. Which direction do we want the bombs to fall from? Not played with this before, but let's give it a go. So really we want to kind of strafe these buildings, don't we? So let's give it an attack direction from kind of that angle up there. Rather than them coming on this direct vector then, what they're going to do is program in an arc and come in something like that. So assuming we've got enough space for that arc here, which we have, that's about 7 miles, it should be fine. 400 knots. Altitude to bomb from. So I can tell them to release the bombs at a certain altitude. I've set 5, I'll just leave it to default at 500 feet. Hopefully I can force them down that low. I might not be able to, we'll just have to see. And do I want them to do dive bombing? Not really. I think I'm going to equip them with snake eyes so they can do a level CCRP manual targeting. Okay, so that set that action up. So next we're going to, that's our action. After this, after they've done their bombing, then we're going to put an egress point. We're going to go add. We're going to go out down here about 10 miles. So, and we want them to go low and fast. So we're going to whack it up to 500 knots for the egress. And then finally an RTB vector to copy Ledi there. And we can head back up to 3,000 feet at that point because we're out of danger, and we can slow down 350 knots, and then they'll come and land here. We'll make that a whoops. I can that's the point. If I make it a waypoint I don't want, I can select it and press. Well, first of all, I can edit it. Click edit, move it around, or I can highlight it under the edit and then delete it. Okay. Get rid of that. Make copy Ledi red so that they'll land there. I could force them to land, but as long as I end their waypoint chain, their route here, then they will automatically land at the nearest red base anyway. So that's fine. Another way we could edit that waypoint is to just click on it like this and drag it. So I could be a bit more over there if I wanted. Okay, so let's review our logic. Cycle back to default waypoint. They get to waypoint 1, they speed up, and they get low. After they hit that waypoint, they have an action to do. It's bombing, and they're going to bomb Sonaki as I ask them to. After that, they're going to hit waypoint 2, low and even faster. And then after that, they're going to slow down, get altitude, get to waypoint 3, and get to copy Ledi. The total route should take them 8 minutes, it should be 8 o'clock, 6:31, so it should take them 6 minutes and 31 seconds to complete this. Let's have a look at some ordnance next. So we're going to go to this guy here, payload, and we're going to equip them. Let's see if there's any of the default loadouts that we want. So these are based on the ground attack facility that we've chosen up there. We want a bunch of snake eyes really, but it's not quite what I want. I'm going to add some more. Going to make Mark 82 snake eye. That's what I want. 4 of them. Snake eye. Snake eye. Snake eye. That's what I want. Okay, internal fuel. We can go with half. We don't need all that gas. And I want them to look like Grim Reapers. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is go back to route here, and I can now populate the group. So I can turn this up to 4, and I can go down to number 3 of 4. Double check that they've got the right ordnance, and they have. So the reason we only populated the group at this point is we wait until we've selected their weaponry and stuff, and then multiplied the group. So otherwise we'd have to arm each unit, each plane out individually. Okay, back to waypoint 0. So let's have a look at what we've got here. Payload we've done. Triggered actions we're not going to be looking at. And summary we have here. We've got the start time, 8 o'clock. The route time is 6 minutes and 32. The route length is 47 nautical miles. Average speed is 430 knots. And the range that we've covered from waypoint 0 to waypoint 3 is 25 miles. So we're pretty happy with that. Back to waypoint 0, and so let's look at adding some more actions for these guys. So the actions that we can give to these guys I put into 2 categories. There is an order, where I ordered them to do something. So that bombing was an order. Another order I could do is attack an aircraft, or refuel, or attack a tank, or land, or take off. These are all orders I can give to this guy. The other type of action I can give them is a constraint, and this affects all AI aircraft, whatever their objective is, whatever type they are, whether they're an AWACS, whatever they are. You can give them orders, or you can give them constraints. And the difference between orders and constraints is that constraints are modal. So once you turn a constraint on, it will stay on until it's turned off, whereas an order is just, a one-time event. And the way it works is they will try and carry out the order within the constraints that you give them, as long as it's possible in terms of the programming. If you give them conflicting, if you say something like go and bomb, if you order them to bomb this target, but then you say give them a modal constraint of hold fire, that is conflicting, and then they'll have to override either the constraint or the order based on whatever they're programmed to do. Simple as that, basically. Okay, so we've told them to bomb this, but let's give them some modal constraints. So if I go back to waypoint, remember constraints are modal, so they stay on until they're turned off. So if you're doing a constraint, you almost always want to do that on waypoint 0, on the initial waypoint. So you can turn it on right at the beginning, and then it will stay on right till the end. So back to waypoint 0, we're going to go to add. We're going to look at some modal constraints. Generally speaking, and this is very general, generally speaking, the stuff under perform task, start on route task, and about 50% of perform command is orders. Then about the other 50% of perform command and most of set options are modal constraints. So let's go to set option under waypoint 0 and let's see what we've got. It's ROE. Okay. What do we want it to be able to fire at? Anything? Prioritize designated, so you can fire at anything, but prioritize the designated order. Only designated, so only fire at the thing I've ordered them to fire at. Return fire and weapons hold. So exactly what I want there. I want them to fire only at Sanaki, drop bombs at Sanaki, and not do anything else. They don't want them to defend themselves against QRA or anything. Okay, so that's something I can choose. So I've set that now. Let's see what else we've got. Add another set option. Reaction to threat, very important one. So until I add this reaction to threat, they don't know what their constraints are regarding reaction to threat, okay? Because I haven't told them, I haven't given their briefing. I'm giving them their mission briefing here in these modal constraints. So reaction to threat. What is a threat? A threat could be them getting spiked by a SAM site. A threat could be a QRA F-15 firing a missile at them. It's whatever it considers to be a threat, okay? Well, what do I want to allow them to be? I can give them no reaction to threat, passive defense, evade fire, evasive tactical maneuver, allow abort mission, or horizontal AAA fire evade. I'm going to make them super hardcore North Koreans, and I'm going to say no reaction. So whatever people throw at them, they will not abort their mission. Okay, and that's modal. That'll stay on until the end of the waypoint chain. Whoops. Let's see what else we've got. And this is all stuff you should set up, because without setting up these constraints, you'll give them too much license to do what they want. They haven't got enough orders to make decisions, good decisions, without these constraints. Okay, so if you run the mission through and they do something weird that you weren't expecting them to do, it's probably because you haven't set their necessary restraints. You haven't given them the information they need to do their mission. Radar using, I'm going to say, yeah, why not? I'm going to say never use, because they've got their designated mission. I don't want them to ever use their radar for ground use, or actually that's wrong, because to do their CCRP they do need to use their radar, don't they? Ooh, right. For attack only, for safety I'm going to leave it on search if required, because they may need to use that to search for that target for the CCRP. I don't know how the AI works in regards to that. Let's add another one. Chaff and flare using, might as well. And I've never actually used this before. Use against fired missile. Use when flying in SAM WES. I'm going to say use against fired missile, I think. It's just what I think. But okay, any more constraints we want to add? Formation, I can change their formation, but I'm going to let them decide what they think is best. RTB, don't care because I've already set them on RTB vector. Silence, I don't want to silence them, and I don't want to mess around with their jamming. So I've set their constraints at the beginning, I've given them their order, and that's them pretty much good to go. So why don't we run that through now and see how they get on. So we've got our 4 guys here. They're getting to waypoint 1, which is going to be pretty soon, to be honest. They are decreasing the altitude down to I specified them about 500 feet, didn't I? They're up to their 450 knots as I designated. And you see how they're interpolating. So I asked them to be 500 feet by here, but they're never going to get 500 feet by there. So what they're doing is interpolating elevation and... oh, they might make it. Let's have a look. Yeah, they've made it. You can see they're having to pull some quite serious maneuvers to be able to follow the specification I gave them, that to drive up this low at this fast and to do the stuff I wanted. So if you remember, I actually asked them to attack now from this angle here. I think I did. Either that or... yeah, I think I did, didn't I? And they're actually going to do something else. So let's just see what they do. So they're going into trail now. Ah, so what they've done, I've forgotten the name of this type of curve, but what they do is to get to here, they do like an S curve like that. Something the Russians do. I don't know what it's called. So they should do a sharp turn now. Let's see if we can get them to do their sharp turn. And in they come. They go one after another. If they follow their orders, they can drop all their bombs. It looks like they're hard-coded for a minimum of 1,000 altitude. So they're not going to do 500, and that's fine. Just how the programming is. Here they come. Going to freeze frame that now. What is it they're actually bombing? Is it... I think it's one of these guys down here, isn't it? This is going to be pretty cool. Where is that they're bombing? I see it's down there. It's these guys, yep. Right, let's lock him in position there. Let's see what happens. Ready? Are they going to do their bombs? Pretty cool, right? That is some blown up friggin' buildings. Now we're going to increase their speed, get together. We'll go on to the exfil waypoint here. Then they're going to go to waypoint 3 and land, just like I asked them to. Oh, they finally got down to 500 feet after they dropped their bombs. So, they've done everything we've asked them to. Happy about that. Let's quit. Let's add the next layer of planes in. We're going to... next, we need our QRA. Our QRA is going to be coming from Kutaisi. I could make them take off, force them to take off and attack, but I don't think they'll get to the runway fast enough in time to get to these bombers, so it's a little bit pointless taking them off. So what I'm going to do is I'll pretend they're already in the air. So maybe they're just a bar cap force or something. And they're going to be a bunch of F-15s. Whoop whoop. They're going to be high intelligence. Well, they'll probably be patrolling at... well, they'll probably be high, but I don't particularly want them to be high. Oh, yes, I do. Let's make them Angels 12. And they're just cruising, having a good time, you know. Having a few beers. In fact, we should go through this properly. Blue... bar cap 100% USA. Their task is cap. They're going to have 4, but we'll come back to that. Skill high. Pilot names and all this will stay as default. They don't want hidden on map. They don't want late activation. Again, we could go through the logic triggers to make these guys spawn in, but we've been through that in another video. That's not what this is for. Okay, they start there. Their start condition is, I forgot to go over this with this guy here, turning point, basically in the air, flyover point, starting in the air again, take off from runway, take off from ramp cold, take off from ramp hot, and on approach landing. So we're going to have turning point as the default. We've been through all of this already, so I can just put them on their cap. The cap is going to take them there, 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 and there. No, it's not. Changed my mind. Delete those. It's going to be there and then orbit. So 300 knots. So at waypoint 1, which is there, they're still cruising technically because we don't know about these bad guys at this point. So their orders are to stay at Angels 12, 300 knots. And at waypoint 1 here, we're going to go add. We're going to go a command, an order rather than a modal constraint. They're going to go orbit, and their orbit is going to be at 300 knots. And it's going to be at a circle at 12,000 feet. Okay, so we'll go along with that. That's a very simple thing there. So next we're going to arm them up. We're going to give them whatever they've got here, some AMRAAMs. That looks good, doesn't it? Okay, cross that off. We're going to generate a whole flight of them. How many do we want? Let's have 3 in this flight. Hidden. The weight here, they don't really want full fuel. They've been orbiting for quite a while. They're on 65% gas with no external tanks. And they're going to be... Oh, that's pretty cool, right? Going to be that there. Triggered actions, summary, just check everything. So that is the summary of their route. And they'll just they'll do that once they get to that orbit and do that orbit at waypoint 1. They'll just keep doing that until they run out of fuel or they're told to do something else. Okay, so I want to add some constraints for them. Back to waypoint 0. Add. Let's go and see what we can do. They're already... you can see automatically they've got cap. Because we selected cap up here, it's important to choose that task. They've automatically got cap as here, and that is a modal order, if you like. It's something that stays on until they're told not to do cap anymore. So that's what they're going to be doing already, so I don't need to tell them to do that. What I could do is, if I wanted something a bit more specific, I probably won't, but what I could do, let's go and have a look. Perform task, I could orbit, refuel, follow, aerobatics. There's nothing there that's of any use. Let's try start on route task. What we could do is search, then engage in zone, search, then engage group, search, then engage unit, or cap. So cap is a general, just keep your radar on and look for bad guys. These are more specific things, and why don't we be a little more specific just to get a little more clever. So we're going to skip out of here for the moment. We're going to create a zone, a trigger zone. We're going to click it here. We know there might be some bad guys coming from this direction, so we've clicked on here. We're going to call it search area. We're going to add some feet to that radius. Nice big radius there. Okay, a little bit smaller maybe. We think the bad guys might be coming from this area. Okay, so we've created the search area. Now we're going to add some specific orders. Once they've got to... I've got to think here. So, the way it works is it follows it through in a logical pattern. So we go to waypoint 1, it'll go cap, then it'll go that, I think that's data link, I think, on. Then it'll go to waypoint 1, it'll actually travel to waypoint 1, then it'll do the waypoint 1 actions, it'll do cap, then it'll do the orbit. So I want to slip a new one in here. I'm going to go add and waypoint 1. I'm going to go perform. I'm going to go start on route task. I'm going to go search, then engage in a zone. What do I want to search for? I see that I don't need my search area here, so I made an error there. So I'm going to get rid of this trigger zone. Click on this guy again. I'm going to click on this waypoint 1. This is the associated vector for the search then engage. So I'm going to increase that in size here, make that about 6. So it's going to search in that area there. What do we want to search for? Airplanes, fighters, bombers, helicopters. So you can tell them what is their mission to search for. And do we want to search for missiles? Do we want to shoot cruise missiles down and stuff like that? Maybe that's something we'll add later. We'll see. What is the priority? And I'm just going to leave it on 0 for now because I don't think I've got anything else to prioritize it against. Okay, so that is that. Now, the problem we've got here is that it's not actually going to do this search command, because what it's going to do logically is do the cap, engage the cap, then orbit, and it'll just orbit, and it won't get any further than that because orbit is a modal order. It's something you tell them to do, and they won't stop doing it until you tell them to stop it. So what I'm saying is that we've got to move this up in the... It's not really a priority, it's the order in which it completes its commands. So we've got to go search then engage, up. So we're going to leave it to have its cap order, and then we're going to search then engage in zone, and only if the results of that are... And then whatever happens after they've searched in that zone and engaged or not engaged, they'll go into their orbit and then stay in their orbit. And then that's essentially the end of their mission until they run out of gas. Okay? So that is our F-15's done. What about our modal constraints? So back to waypoint 0. Add. What else do we want to add? Let's have a look. Set options. ROE. Now if you don't set the ROE, then it will have a default, but unless you check what that default is, you don't really know what it is, so I do suggest setting it. So I'm going to set the ROE as weapons free. They can fire whatever they consider to be a bad guy. Add next. Reaction to threat. I don't want them to allow to abort mission. I'm not sure. I haven't decided what I want the reaction to threat, so I'm going to leave that for now. Anything else? Everything else I think I'm going to leave as it is, except the formation. I think I'm going to change. And I'm going to push this right up in the order so they do it first of all. I want them to do a finger 4. And I'm going to do a close grouping here. So they'll be the Reapers, and they fly on each other's wings really close, needlessly so. Sorry, this one here, group close, 50 meters by 50 meters. Okay, that's that. They're going to be flying their finger 4. They've got the ROE as weapons free, and they're going to search in that zone. Now, interestingly, by the time they get to this zone, these guys may be out of the zone, so we'll just have to see how that plays. Okay, so what I want to do for that. And next, these guys are going to want to have some escort, aren't they? So let's give them some escort. New plane group. It is going to be a MiG-29S. It's going to be high intelligence. It's going to be red escort. Don't want any of this, so we'll just carry on. I'm not going to give them any waypoint orders. Instead, I'm going to give them a different type of action in regards to their route. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to... in fact, I better... no, we can get on with it. So under their waypoint 0, their only default waypoint, if you like, we're going to go to add. We're going to go to perform task, and we're going to go to... I'm going to have to find it here now. Perform command. Start on route task. My bad. I've set them up as the wrong thing. So delete that. Task. If I've got to set the task up, I've got to tell them what to do. They're going to escort. Okay? Let's try that again. Waypoint 0, add. Perform task. Escort. I could follow or escort, but we're going to escort. Okay. Do we want to escort conditionally? No. I want to escort unconditionally. Escort red bombers group. We can have the distance, the elevation, and the interval here. So this tells us how where we're gonna fly to escort these guys. You know, at the moment, 1,600 feet behind them, on the same elevation. Elevation, I want them to be above, really. So I want them to be 10,000 feet above. An interval of 600 feet. How long do we want to escort them to? All the way to waypoint 3? No, we want to escort them to waypoint 2. Engage distance. So at what distance do we leave these guys to go and attack hostiles? Say 35 miles. No, say 30 miles. Okay. And what contacts do we want to be able to leave our escort for? Well, we're not bombers. Fighters only. So, I think that's right. So, we're only willing to leave our escort if there's blue fighters. Okay? So that's that. Let's see if I'm not going to give them any waypoints, so that's everything done. And that's it, basically. They'll get to follow these guys to waypoint 2, engage if they have to. After that, I think I can give them a waypoint after that, so I'm going to add them a new waypoint here, add. So, to there, to Kobileli. So let's follow the logic pattern. Waypoint 0. They've got a modal order here of escort red bomber. So the first thing we're going to do is escort these guys until the red bomber gets to waypoint 2. Then it's going to go to waypoint 1, which is here for its RTB. Okay? Let's go and arm it up. Let's give it, I don't know, adders or whatever they're called. Okay. Done. Not much more we need to really check here. Triggered action summary. So that's all fine. We now need to see if we need to add any constraints, because these guys have got quite a complicated job here. So let's go back to waypoint 0. Do we want any modal constraints here? Let's see what we've got. They're ROE. Only designated. So at the moment they can only fire at things they're designated to fire at. And due to their escort duty, I believe that will allow them to fire at anything that attacks the bombers. So if something targets the bombers, these guys will go and attack them. But just out of interest, to see what happens, I think I'm going to make the weapons free. Anything else? Add. Reaction to threat. No. Radar using. I'm going to leave all this on default. I'm not going to play with anything. Okay, so that's that set. Okay, so what I want to do now is we've got to multiply the group here. We're going to have 3 of them. Check that number 3 has its weapons. It does. Super duper. Right, let's go ahead and run the simulation through. So the bombers are going to go and do their thing. They're going to ignore any threats as our modal constraints. The F-15s are on their cap duty and they're searching this target now with their radars. The MiG-29s are escorting until they are within 30 miles of a target, which they are not currently. F-15s have split their formation. That means they're doing something. They've seen something. So it looks like they've seen these guys. If you can see their heading, it's 240, which is that there. That is an intercept course. They've put themselves on an intercept course with either the bombers or the fighters. That'll be interesting to see now if they prioritise the bombers or the fighters. I've not given them a modal constraint to prioritise either, so they're going to use their own base programming now to decide what they're going to attack. Got the primary fighter here. I get the feeling this guy's going to go for the bombers and this guy the fighters. I may be completely wrong with that. Their course is still 240, so they're still on that course there. They've still got themselves on their fast intercept course, which is the right thing. If they would have head directly for the target, they'll, it's not an as efficient route. This guy's definitely going ahead. They're up to 700 knots, so they're about to start lobbing missiles. Full attack formation. Angels 15. Max power. Now, have the MiG-29s... No, the MiG-29s, because they've been told not to engage outside of 30 miles, are still not speeding up. And finally, they're speeding up. The afterburners have turned on now, and they're going to go and attack these guys because they are within the 30 miles, so it's now all going to get sexy. The F-15s have changed their target. Oh, no, you see? Because these guys here have started turning up doing their Russian S. You can see this guy here is now leading in front of them. He's now going that direction. These in him are still going in this direction. So that means they've prioritised 2 guys for the MiG-29s, 1 guy for the bombers. That's just how they've decided to do it. Can they get there before the bombs are dropped? Who knows? And these guys, remember, are programmed not to they're prone to drop the bombs and not avoid at all. So anything could happen at this point. MiG-29s, I think they're attacking. Increasing altitude, so I imagine they are. F-15s are much superior tactically. We're at nearly 800 knots. So, excuse me, optimum firing conditions. We've got our first adder out from a slow... So, interesting in the difference of technique here. The MiG-29s are going slow, mil power, and popping off long-range adders. And the F-15s are burning in at 800 knots. So, a complete difference of how they're using the aeroplanes. We've got another adder coming out. These guys are going to drop their bombs. The F-15s just didn't get there in time. They tried their fastest. They went as fast as they possibly could. These guys have to start evading now. Bombs are going to come out. Snake Eyes out. Brrr. Only one bomb dropped. So, these guys here upset the F-14s enough, even though that they're programmed to ignore threat, upset them enough that they couldn't do their bombing run. They could only drop one bomb. That's an interesting thing that happened. And this guy here and that guy there have aborted completely. We've got an AIM-120 out, probably on this leading F-14. All F-15s are going defensive now. They're split-S-ing. These guys are not going defensive. This F-14 is going to run right into that missile because I told him to ignore oncoming fire. That's the first kill. Pop. Oh, kind of getting. This guy here has got target fixation on this guy here, and he's going to get popped by this F-15. No, it's the F-14. Again, the F-14s are programmed not to evade. Oh, lucky. Got a missile at adders. These guys are going for these guys here. The Russians are going to win this, I think. The F-15s have just got confused. This guy's the wild card, though. Oh, no, he's got fired at. Look at that. Double F-15 kill. Pew. And as ever, the Russians whip ass. This guy's doing some great maverick stuff. Way too high to be dodging missiles. He's a sitting duck. This guy's going to pwn him. In the face. And there we go. That is our simulation complete. So I think that's all I really want to show. Where did we add a helicopter in there? We could start adding SAMs and we could start adding boats and stuff, but that's, we want to keep this to what I promised it was. It was just giving orders, how the order system works, the logic system in terms of the giving order system, the modal constraints, the modal or the one-off orders, and how they relate to their waypoints, and how the logic system relates to that. The only other thing I would show is putting a helicopter in. To be honest, they're exactly the same. Well, that's not technically true. The orders that we can give to the aircraft are specific to that aircraft and the task that you give them. So if we have helicopters here, we'll have extra options that we can give them. So for instance, I've got a KF-50, we're going to make it, I don't know, CAS. Waypoint 0, we could ask it to do this stuff, attack a group, attack a unit within a group, orbit. We could ask it to land, and it doesn't have to be in an airport, it could be anywhere. Ask it to follow something, don't know what embark is. I think that means taking on troops and dumping troops, I'm really not sure. You could ask it to pick up some cargo and take that cargo somewhere. You could ground escort. You could ask it to escort a tank. And so all these extra things, and they'll change. When you change the different type of helicopters, these things will be changed. En route tasks, same as the F-15. Got some commands we could do. Pretty much the same as the aircraft that perform commands, the planes. Set options. The modal restraints are more or less the same. So that's it. We could just go and you can do all sorts of stuff there, and you can tie this in with your ground units, dynamic ground units. So you could have a bunch of tanks that spawn up here at some point, and when that happens, you could have the F-14s could then go search for those tanks with the search commands that we look for. So they won't know where the tanks are per se. They could search for them. And if they find them, you could ask them to bomb them or support them or drop flares over them or, whatever you want. So you can keep going on to a very high resolution. I think that's all I want to say. That's all I want to show. I hope that helps and see you later.